morning.
All right, now we're going live on YouTube. Now that's working as we expect it to. And we're live on YouTube.
Oh,
Yay.
yay, it's us.
All right. So now go and find our book. And there we are. All right. Well, here with Bruce Rawles, Lynn Johnson, and we're reading Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles. And we're actually moving quite along. We're 91% through the book now. And I was just looking through uh, all of our past recordings. We've been doing this for quite a while. We do have a nice backlog of recordings if anybody wants to go and hear the whole book from the beginning. It's all here on our YouTube channel. So like and subscribe. That's my new watchword there. Like and subscribe. All right. There we go. So here we are. And I guess I'll go ahead and start
Okay.
reading. And so let's see. All right, so we're getting these messages from Jesus, and I'm going to back up a paragraph. Um, this message from Jesus, which he says, asking is the way to God because it offers you his will as he would have you hear it. We will have a series of lessons, for example, the pamphlet on asking because you have not understood it. But do not think because of that you have been mistaken in your attempts. You have done well and will do better. So asking is important, and that's pretty much today's lesson. Is Today I'm only going to be having the thoughts that God would have me have, or God is my only goal today. And that is basically asking about everything, of all things, what is it that I want here? What is it that is happening here? And uh, remembering that the only purpose of any of it is God. Okay, so Ken says this completed the first part of the message, was specifically and gently addressed the issues I had been raising with Helen. The reader may note the total absence of blame or fault finding in Jesus' message. You have not been, quote, you have not been wrong in the past about how you have asked, but you are ready for a step ahead now, unquote. And then the same gentle tone again in the last paragraph, where his attitude, characteristic of the tone of A Course in Miracles as well, is what Helen had done that Helen had done her best and her mistakes will now be corrected. And that's what Jesus is saying to you and me right now. You've been working hard, you've been doing your best. And if you made any mistakes, don't worry about it because it's all been corrected already. The
It's sort of
corrected.
like you've successfully climbed a flight of stairs, and I'll guide you to the top of Everest.
That's right. That's right. Which is funny. I follow this kid on TikTok. His name is Peter Mai, and he's Austrian. And oh my Lord, he's climbed up to this top of this huge mountain that there's this big cross on top of it. But the climbing was just totally precarious the whole way. And you're watching it and just freaking out because, this guy is going through some crazy stuff. Plus, he's got a cat, which he carries in his backpack, and the cat is just sitting on top of his backpack through all this and just looking around. It's the craziest thing ever. And I mean, it's amazing. But he's the dearest person in the world. Absolutely. But he climbed into the top of that mountain and he's fallen down a few times. And I mean it's pretty crazy to watch this guy. So um if y- so I'm reminded here of the statement Helen heard once from Jesus. If you do my will, I will uphold it. If you do not do my will, I will correct it.
That's such
The
a
clear
great,
meaning.
great statement, isn't it?
I
I
love
really,
that.
I really like that too. It's like, not no problem, as long as you're aligning with the undoing of the sin, guilt, fear thought system, I'm there with you all the way. And if you pause, I'll wait until you're ready to resume. That's no
Yep.
big deal.
If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting
Hmm.
time after time.
Love that song.
I
Even
know.
beyond time, really,
And
huh?
beyond time.
Yep. Outside of time.
So okay, so the clear meaning is that we cannot lose either way, and all we are asked to do is simply our best. Mistakes, which can come only from our fear of Jesus's love, will always be corrected at a later opportunity when we are less fearful. In fact, choosing to be less fearful is the correction of the mistake, whose origin, regardless of the form it takes, is always fear.
Mhm.
So I think this is a great point that Ken makes here, is that choosing to be less fearful is the correction.
Mhm.
And how often do we choose to be fearful? I mean, fear is a choice. And you would think, well, of course, it's the smart choice because if you don't protect yourself, you'll be in trouble. But in reality, there's nothing to fear, nothing to correct, nothing to defend, nothing to fear. So the correction is coming to the place where I recognize fear is the enemy. It's not the helpful helper that I think it is.
And in a sense, even the word enemy is something that we'll let go of as we accept Holy Spirit's vision, and the correction, because only the ego can have enemies. The Holy Spirit doesn't oppose, it doesn't fight against uh, non-duality, or fight against duality, or the dream, because there's nothing in the dream to fight against. And it would be absurd to battle against nothing. It's sort of the old Don Quixote
Don Quixote, yeah.
tilting windmills. It's like fighting nothing.
Gee,
Well,
there's
that's
somebody else that's been fighting windmills lately. I wonder how,
I, I, mi-
literally.
I might be missing the reference because I haven't really paid much attention to the news the last few weeks, other than a little bit of NPR driving up from Arizona to Oregon twice. But
Yeah.
other than that, I
Well,
haven't had
if
much
you ever
news.
wanted to check it out, I mean, it's pretty silly, but yeah, just look up talk about windmills, and you're going to hear things about windmills that you would never have imagined, which are completely untrue.
Are
Uh,
these the wind generating windmills that?
yes,
Okay,
yes, that
okay.
are
I
that are
can
ruining the
I
everything,
can I can guess. Yeah, right. Yeah.
killing all the birds, destroying. And now they're building a whole wind farm next to his golf course in Scotland. I think just because of that, it's hilarious.
I think maybe I have heard a little bit about that
Yeah, but
a while back.
tilting
Yeah,
at
yeah,
windmills, that's what
yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But everything that we do on the level of form that basically pits one specific against another, which is really the core of our individual existence, is I'm a separate self that's competing for resources and nourishment and shelter and protection and all those Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That whole perspective is based on duality, and the course is a non-dual teaching. So, nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. Really represents the a profound difference between the course and so many other dualistic teachings that suggest that we have to fight against evil and conquer the ego, and the course just says, just look at it with the Holy Spirit and it will disappear,
Yeah.
because it's only from that perspective, because it's only from a not pure non-dual perspective that we see that everything we've made up within a dream of duality has had no effect on our real identity, which is perfect oneness, which is perfect, pure non-dual
Yeah.
identity. Yeah.
Yeah. And so choose again is the only answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, and where it says in the last line there in that paragraph, the phrase, regardless of the form it takes, is always fear. Well, sin, guilt, fear, duality, death, in any negative thought or feeling, anything that the slightest bit unpeaceful is a suitable synonym, not on the level of form, but because we have different words for different thoughts and feelings and experiences, but from the course's perspective, anything that is not sublimely, profoundly, perfectly peaceful, the love of God, the peace of God, um, is basically part of our hallucinatory experience that the course reminds us will be removed for us whenever we're ready to let go of it. And they're all equivalent. And then that's the
They're
simplicity
all
of salvation. They're,
synonyms.
they're all synonyms. So anything that's
Synonyms.
yes, sin onyms, right? Pun intended, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's such an important point because people get hung up in words and jargon and things like that. But the course is really amazingly simple. It's not easy only because we've made it complicated, and we want to complexify. How's that for a complicated word? We want to complexify the course because it basically says, well, if I do that, I get to give myself some breathing room, and that's okay, because the course doesn't have a deadline. Now that would be contrary to the whole point is, but just whenever we're good and ready to let go of self abuse and sacrifice and suffering, uh, and the idea of needing to surrender to something external. Well, no, there's nothing out there, and then there's nothing in our mind as well that's amiss, other than our one choice for a thought system of duality that and differences and polarization and insanity that the tiny mad idea that we keep bringing back over and over again until we're good and ready to say, gosh, maybe I could just drop this all together. And so we're all working
Yeah,
on that, right? Yeah.
right, exactly. And the idea that there is nothing to fear,
Mm-hmm.
which is says very clearly in the course, there is nothing to
Mm-hmm.
fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so fear itself is the sin, if you want to call it that. So yeah,
Yeah. It's
and
it's the
we can
mistake.
choose.
It's a correctable
Yeah,
mistake. Yeah. And,
yeah,
and from the ego's perspective, sin is like a big, horrible, awful word. And I think the course asks us to look at the ego's interpretation, see how absurd it is, how overblown. And in fact, there's nothing to 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 inflate in that nothingness of the whole thought system of sin, guilt, and fear. But we have to look at it. We have to be willing to look and see what we've made by the miscreations or the misuse of our mind, having believed we split it, and just see that that's just silly. It's forgivable. I love how
yeah.
Ken Wapnick says it's not evil, sinful, or wicked. It's just silly. And the
It's
more we can look at it gently, patiently, calmly, and see, wow, this vast illusion has had no effect on our eternal being that we all share. It is our inheritance is safe and sound, and it's an experience beyond anything we can imagine. But it's waiting for us, but just
yeah.
past the fear. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the theme of special relevance for the lessons
Mm-hmm.
this week are what is sin?
Yep. Yep.
And it's sin
Insanity.
sin is mistake. Sin
Yep.
is
Yep.
you know it's not real. So yeah, so remembering that and recognizing that it doesn't exist, and we can prove it by not paying attention to it and changing our mind, we see something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So let's see. The second half of the message begins the more formal teaching with the idea that specific questions inevitably place limitations on God. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to let you read this. I'm going to flip it over,
Okay.
and well, I'll go ahead and let you read while
Okay.
I try to clear my voice up a little bit here.
Okay. Okay. Any specific question involves a large number of assumptions which inevitably limit the answer. A specific question is actually a decision about the kind of answer that is acceptable. The purpose of words is to limit, and by limiting, to make a vast area of experience more manageable. But that means manageable by you. Well, there's again, how we limit our experience and attempt to divide over and over again the perfect oneness and make differences important and sameness, try to diminish the sameness that is uh, calmly waiting for us to recognize that beyond the sameness is the oneness that we thought we threw away, but we can't. It's our real identity, and everything that seems to reflect differences and polarization is a forgivable dream, and it really is nothing. But we have to look at the nothing over and over in all of its varied forms and facets and permutations and manifestations, and see, eventually it's like, well, there's nothing there. It's just a bogus premise that has seemed to have blossomed into a whole pan-galactic universe of incredible diversity of stuff, even just on this one little, you know, hokey little planet that we think we live on. There's a whole lot of stuff that seems to be happening, and each part of it is a perfectly crafted classroom for the silly, seemingly separate selves that we think we've made out of oneness. And that's all the experiences we have are our perfect classroom. Well, now I like to say mathematically perfect, that bring us to exactly what we need to forgive, and bring those projections back inside, see that they haven't had any effect on anything eternal, which is all of us. And that is how we look at how we try to make those vast areas of experience more manageable, and just say, what if I let Holy Spirit manage things? Whoa, what a concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my gosh. And it's so funny because what was the first task that God gave, quote unquote, God gave to Adam in the Garden of Eden? What
was
was the task that God
was
gave?
probably putting something in his daytimer, right?
Yeah, putting something in his daytimer, that's right. It was to name everything, to
Oh
give
yeah, that
everything
was it. Yeah,
names. And so that's the words that we made to limit. Yeah, the daytimer is the thing we made to limit.
yeah.
I can do this and only this. This is my plan for the day. Uh, that is an elephant. This is a monkey. I am a person.
This is a politician. This is a trash can. This is a cat.
Do we know the difference?
This
And
is a cardboard box. This is an empty living room.
oh my gosh, you have no furniture. I just realized that. I I remember those movings and sleeping on air
If Yeah,
mattresses.
we're doing indoor camping, or some people call it glamping, but I'm not sure how glamorous it is. Yeah. Should I
Oh
read
my.
on?
Yes, please.
Okay. The course student is reminded of the statement from the Manual for Teachers. God does not understand words, for they were made by separated minds to keep them in the illusion of separation. That's from the manual, uh, section 21, paragraph 1 and sentence 7. And words again are symbols of symbols, as it says elsewhere. They're and the book, of Course in Miracles, isn't holy, but the ideas behind it are. I mean, and the ideas that the Holy Spirit fosters in our right minds are the holy instance, right? So the statement in the message about managing a, quote, vast area, unquote, is an important point, for it emphasizes Helen's underlying ego purpose in continuing to ask for specifics. Well, of course, that applies to all of us. The purpose of words was to place a limit, in parentheses, quote, make more manageable, unquote, close parentheses. How's that for punctuation? On Jesus and the experience of his love. We shall return to this phenomena below. The message continues, for many aspects of living in this world, that, making more manageable in brackets, is necessary, but not for asking. God does not use words and does not answer in words. He can only, quote, speak, unquote, to the Christ in you, who translates his answer into whatever language you can understand and accept. And that's why I think sometimes if we have, revelatory dreams, or mystical experiences, or holy instance, or whatever we want to call it, that seem to be really helpful. Um, Oftentimes they seem to have a specific content, and yet all those specifics is a way to get us to get back to our truly abstract mind, and heal all the differences that the specifics would seem to represent, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is all interpretation, and interpretation from uh a character that is not only ignorant but also deaf and blind.
Right.
We don't see, we don't hear, and we don't even know what's really
Mhm.
happening. So the whole experience we're having is made up in our minds, and you know full well you can go to the same party as a dozen other people and come back with a whole different interpretation of what happened. uh,
Right, right,
no matter what, go to a movie with other
right.
people, go
Sure.
any, it's all relative to my own thinking. And so that's why it's so important to recognize that the Holy Spirit's not leaving anybody out. So, if you think, I just can't get this course, I can't understand this course doesn't mean anything to me, it's not giving me, I want something more like a course of love. Oh, here's a course of love. Oh, this has meaning to me because it says the word love in the title, and it talks about the heart, whereas that other book didn't talk about the heart or love. And you didn't, and other people who are reading the course are going, that's all it's talking about. This is really all it's being talked about. It's
Yeah,
the same
and
thing.
there's nothing wrong with any other path or all
No.
the different spin-offs and variations of the course. That I think the point that Ken makes, and I also in Bob Rosenthal's commentary that's on the FIP website, he does a really even-handed critique of the, what is it, 900-page some odd volume that's put up by the Circle of Atonement. All these different translations. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if we try to make it about the differences between one version and another, we're kind of forgetting the point that the true content of the course is that nothing happened,
Yeah.
and that forgiveness is always justified, and the only thing we really need to do is accept the atonement for ourselves and keep practicing that forgiveness until we restore our mind to its natural, abstract, non-dual state, which is one of perfect peace. And that's I think what everyone really wants, even though our split minds, part of our split mind that we call ego would argue vehemently to the contrary, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole thing of, would you rather be right than happy? Well, damn
Hmm.
straight I'd rather be right. Of course I want to be right, and that will make me happy, right?
Actually, probably damn crooked, but
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I want to be
damn
right.
twisted, as the course would say.
Yeah, damn
Yeah.
twisted is exactly it. I don't care. I want to be right. And that rightness is what, that perception of rightness is I mean, if you could only understand, that, that changes by the day.
Yeah, yeah.
What you thought was good yesterday, maybe, oh man, I'm eating this, I don't know what, apple pie, and it's the most delicious thing I ever had, and I love the apple pie, and I'm eating apple pie, and then later that night you get sick and you're throwing up apple pie, and you're going, I'll never eat apple pie again. Because you had an experience with it that, who knows what happened, why you were sick, you may got a flu or something, but you're going to blame the pie because that was the thing that's evident, and not even look for the real reason for why this happened. and
So
and
binge eating is followed by binge blaming. Is that how it works?
that's it, yes.
But I think the world is a binge blame experience that, we seem to have lulls in it, but it's really just a an ego orgy of projection and blame and fault finding, and sometimes it's more subtle than others, but that's the whole bag, as long as there's something outside to keep us mesmerized and hypnotized, to think that we don't have a mind, and that our mind could be responsible and for choosing the thought system that could correct all this, then we're just deceiving ourselves, needlessly suffering, as the Course says. Yeah. It looks like
Exactly.
Sally's got her hand up.
Yeah, Sally's got her
My
hand up.
dogs are barking. I'm sorry, but it always makes me laugh when a bad situation comes up and it's a big problem. And the first thing anybody ever says is, well, who's to blame for this? Like that's the most important thing, not solving the problem, but who's to blame for this?
Right, right,
It always
exactly.
makes me laugh.
Find the culprit. Yeah. If you think about the murder mysteries that are so popular now, I mean, my wife watches a lot of them just because there's not that much else on, it seems. And in terms of the kinds of genres that she likes. But it's interesting that they're so popular because every, almost every murder mystery you watch, the premise, maybe almost to one, is, well, there's one person or maybe a group of people that are responsible for a crime, but it's never the people investigating the crime. It's never the other innocent parties. That there's always a we and a they and a polarization that makes the justification for blame and projection ever so much more solid and watertight as a a defensible case. But
Mm,
whenever we defend anything, that wanting to be right again, that's a defense. I have to, in order to be right, there has to be a wrong, and I have to defend against the wrong, whether it's in my own mind or someone else's. There's a defense necessary, and that defense is exhausting, but we don't see that until we look at it from outside the ego thought system with
yeah.
Holy Spirit's help. Yeah.
And that is so true. And we are on the defensive from the very beginning.
Hmm.
And like Ken says, when the baby is first born and comes out and says, "Who did this to me?
It's not my
It's
fault.
not my fault.
I love how Ken says it. Yeah, that's such a great line.
It's
Yeah.
not my fault."
Yeah, we just they just don't know English, but the wah is basically, it's not my fault. Yeah.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
soon as they learn English, they'll translate it to that.
Yeah, and they'll figure out who to blame.
Right,
And
right,
and oh my gosh, so much of it is blaming the parent. It's your fault that, I'm
right.
I'm shy. It's your fault that whatever. I mean, even even people who are our age, Bruce, are still saying, "My mother never let me do this." What? What?
Well, sometimes we hang on to things for a long time.
A long, long time.
Thoughts as well as stuff, as I'm going to discover when I did take a lot of loads to charity and sold a few things on Craigslist and what next doors. But before we move, but there's still a goodly number of things that I didn't get to. Probably should have started much earlier had I known we were going to be moving. But
Yeah,
there's this baggage, where there's physical baggage that's a symbol of the inner baggage, but it's always an internal game that we're playing.
exactly.
Hanging on to grievances of one sort or another. Yeah.
Hanging on,
Yep.
because then I'm not to blame. It's not my fault. I didn't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the one who's being uh mistreated here. And speaking of, not to change the subject at all, but did you said that before that you had a set of major arcana tarot cards that someone had made or drawn up or something, and that you were thinking of getting rid of them. Did
Oh,
you? Or
actually, my wife found somebody on eBay to sell those to. So,
okay,
so
yeah.
they're gone. Yeah.
All right. So I don't need them anyway.
Okay.
But I was thinking they'd be cool to have. Anyways, so uh I'll continue reading then.
Okay.
So these are messages that Jesus gave to Helen personally, some of which ended up being actually in the course,
Hmm.
and some of which, are just these special messages that he gave to her. And this is what we have to understand, which I think, maybe some people didn't understand, that not everything Jesus said to Helen belonged in A Course in Miracles,
Right. Right.
or
And
was going into the Course in Miracles.
it's kind of like when I put the first draft of my book together, my first book, I found some of those pages going through. I think it was a couple of moves ago, and I recycled them because I thought, "Oh, I don't really need the first draft anymore. It's done its purpose," and I didn't need to have it published because it was a first draft and it had things I wanted to correct in it. And so, make good recycle paper, good
Yeah,
scratch
yeah,
paper. Yeah.
yeah. And wouldn't you be horrified if somebody went and dug those out of the trash and published them and
Well,
said, "Look, this
I
is
think I think the perspective is to remember that it's like, well, okay, it might be of some interest to historical scholars or whatever, but for
yes,
the general populace, it's probably better to use the the polished and refined and edited version that was what was intended by the author and the publisher, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly." So, but anyways, enough of
I,
that.
yeah, exactly.
That's a special grievance that I carry with me, and I try to get over it because
Well, we don't
my
have to make a grievance out of it. We can just kind of look at it and smile, right?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I keep trying to do. And I think it's this fundamentalist belief in my mind that things are supposed to be a certain way.
I think
And
one of my favorite examples of lampooning that kind of thinking is in Monty Python's Life of Brian movie,
mhm.
where Brian discovers this countercultural group called the People's Front of Judea, and they're up in the bleachers in the Colosseum watching some gory spectacle, no doubt, which you don't see, way up in the nosebleed section, and they're eating all these little animal parts, and the street vendor goes, the vendor through the bleachers goes by. But then after he said, are you the People's Front of Judea? And he says, no, we're the Judean People's Front. And then followed by an expletive, which I won't repeat. And then but that's it. I mean, we make a big deal about the order of the words instead of, what they mean, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And they mean nothing.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, words are symbols of symbols twice removed, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we have words have very little meaning now because they really don't. But they're what we know. So
I put that clip in my glossary as one of my little Easter eggs, by the way.
oh, that's that. I love that. I love that.
So if you
So
if you run across there's over a dozen funny little clips in there. One is real obvious because I put a graphic of Captain Kirk talking to the Nomad in one of those first season
oh
episodes.
yeah.
But most
Excuse
the
me.
rest of them are just links that you'll stumble across as you go through the glossary.
That's pretty funny. And it's you just remind me when I used to be work for the government, and I was working as a technical writer at the time, and we were writing all these procedures which were just like vast many, I mean, geez, they were just so you had to have certain things and they had to be a certain way. But
Right.
this fellow that I worked with, he had a great sense of humor. And so in the final published thing, you'd be reading along, do this, then that, and then she was wearing lacy lingerie, and as she stepped out of and so he put like a couple of sentences of something really racy
To
in the
see if
middle
see
of,
if anybody's actually reading it.
see if people are actually reading it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
guess
yeah.
what? Nobody caught it.
I did
I
the same
mean,
thing when I did a consulting gig for the Air Force for 2 or 3 months in Spokane, Washington, and they had this list of acronyms that was, a mile long, and I tried to get, and I wanted, the people I work with to review them, make sure I got the important ones, and I had like 7 pages, single space of acronyms, and about page 5, I put in FSNP, and then famous Spock nerve pinch, and from Star Trek, and nobody caught that one
nobody caught it because yes.
because nobody read it.
Those little details, we don't care.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's hilarious anyway.
Uh,
Okay, so the aforementioned message of October 5th, 1975, quoted in chapter 14, made the same point. And the point is what? For many aspects of living in this world, that making more manageable is necessary, but not for asking. God does not use words and does not answer in words. He can only speak to the Christ in you, who translates his answer into whatever language you can understand and accept.
Swahili, Fortran, or whatever, right? Yeah.
Exactly, whatever it is, gibberish.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you too could become president. Oh, the aforementioned message of October 5th, 1975, quoted in chapter 14, made the same point. Okay, step back.
I was trying to click on your right arrow on my screen, which
I
obviously
know,
didn't work.
I do it all the
Isn't that
time.
funny?
I do it all
Yeah.
the time because I have two different screens up too.
There's projection, huh?
I know, it's hilarious. All right, step back and do not dwell upon the forms that seem to keep you bound. Lay no limits on what you would give to him to be resolved, for he cannot offer 1,000 answers when but one is all there is. Accept this one of him, and not one question will remain to ask. And yeah, wow, this is all totally lessons 79 and 80.
Mhm.
Let me know what the problem is so it can be solved. And then, oh yeah, the problem has been solved already. Um, there's not 1,000 answers. There's not
Mhm.
1,000 questions. There's only one question. And the question is, who did this to me?
And the answer is, oh, I did it to myself by choosing an insane thought system, and it's not the thought system that's the problem, let alone the world that it's projecting that's the problem. It's my decision for the ego, my wanting to identify with insanity that's the problem. Oh, oops. Oh, I can fix that. Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit says, easy peasy. Ego says, yikes, I've been found out. I'm doomed.
Yeah,
But
but then I can come up with
there's
another
nothing to be
problem.
doomed, right?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I can come up with another problem.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly. Exactly.
now my head hurts. Oh, forget all that. My head's got
Anything can hurt, and
yeah,
it's a just suitable distraction, right?
exactly because we want to be distracted.
Right.
I want to be sedated. Okay. So, to understand this very important teaching, let us consider a glass of water. For the purposes of this example, we shall think of water as abstract and formless, thereby having the properties of spirit. Thus, water will here symbolize for us the abstract and formless nature of God's love, which alone is reality, and which is a reality we truly share as God's Son. As the Course states, complete abstraction is the natural condition of the mind. And that's from the workbook, lesson 161. This reality as Christ, however, is beyond our limited and separated ego self, to which we give a name, history, anticipated future, etc. It is therefore impossible for us to know God in this world, because, as the Course explains, this world in general and bodies and brains in particular were made to fulfill the ego's purpose of keeping knowledge of God, Christ, and their unity away from us. Thus were specifics made from lesson 161. So that's, I mean, the whole purpose of the body, the world, everything is to keep us from remembering the truth of what we are, and keep God out. I mean, the world was made to keep God out. And as long as I agree with that, then I'm going to be looking for specifics to help me. But if you came up with any question, it doesn't matter. I have a headache, or my bank account is broke, or I don't, there's a war going on, or we need gun control, or whatever the thought you have in your mind. If you would just go to the real answer is, I I'm doing this to myself. I've forgotten the truth of what I am. There's nothing to fear. Everything, I mean, this course just really explains it so clearly. And yet, I still get caught up in my own delusions of the world.
Hmm.
Try to come up
Don't
with a specific answer.
don't we all? And to just forgive ourselves as we find ourselves doing all the things we do throughout the day, and just say, well, that's what dream figures do. But then the part of our mind that's watching the dream figure is what we're learning to identify with, which is the Holy Spirit, that is a not gentle, patient, non-condemning awareness that just looks and waits and judges not, as the Course says. Right?
Exactly,
And that's our
exactly.
way out. Yep.
That's our way out. Look and judge not. My God. How how simple it would be, and yet, oh my gosh, I've got to weigh in on this. I have an opinion about this. I went to school and studied this stuff. Oh, absolutely, I know all about it. So, the glass of water here, I know what it is. It could be frozen, it could be solid, it could be gas, it could be, many, many things. Yes, you call it spirit, but I call it lots of other stuff. I know, but I don't know. I really don't. So when we call upon the love of God, turning to Him as our self, capital S self, we are in effect able to transcend our ego identification, if only for an instant. In that holy instant, which transcends time and the entire ego thought system, we remember our reality and identity as God's Son. Thus, we become that identity, abstract and formless, as our Creator. Love has rejoined itself, and that love is one. Again, I'm using water as a symbol for that unity of self and self, love, and love. Self and self, love and love, unity of one thing. So that's how we, here he's explained very clearly how the holy instant occurs. The holy instant doesn't occur when I'm just sitting quietly and watching my breath. I mean, it can occur then, but it's really the holy instant is when we transcend our ego identification. Our only job is to demonstrate that we're not an ego.
Mhm.
And if you can do that for an instant, and Jesus tells us that in the Course, at not one instant does the body actually exist.
At no
In that,
single instant does it
yeah,
exist at all. Yeah.
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 So, I mean, that's to be in that
What an
single.
impressively photorealistic 3D holographic movie fantasy we're having, huh?
Yes. Or else we're easily impressed,
Mm.
which is what I think the ego, we think, oh, this is just so wonderful. The ego is so smart. And I'm like, we're just so easily impressed, and the ego is just dumb as a rock because there are too many exceptions in this world for me to praise the ego for its invention, if that makes any sense. All right. Do you want to read? Let's see, we have about 10, 12 more minutes. So,
Okay. Sure. And we're in that part of our minds?
yes.
Okay. That part of our minds that chooses to return to where we never truly left is, quote, where, unquote, God's, quote, speaks, unquote, to us. Quotes are helpful, aren't they? Because there's no where and there's no speaking other than how we interpret it in our minds. However, when our minds return to their belief in separation and we once again experience ourselves as a personal self in relation to our Creator, as opposed to being one with Him, the quote speaking unquote is mediated through our separated minds and comes out as words, which our minds can understand. That's a really excellent explanation, isn't it? I mean, Ken has such a great clarity of thought that, I mean, he really states it like it is. Like, well, it's like it's the words that we get and their specifics are really for our benefit, but they have nothing to do with the reality that's beyond the words. It is thus our separated minds that structure the unstructured, shape the shapeless, and form the formless. It is not God who does this because he does not know of shape and form. More brilliantly clear words to explain what's wordless. Thank you, Ken. And thank you all. His love, which simply is, supplies the content. Our minds supply the shape or words. Yeah, this is very Platonic. I'm just going to pause for a moment. I was just thinking of, what little I know of Plato and what I've read and heard over the years. It's like, Plato was very much a proponent of getting to the ideal rather than the specifics, but using the specifics to get to the ideal. And I think that's why the course is a very Platonic course. Is we need in the case of the courses, metaphysics and psychology, is we need to look at all the grievances, the specific grievances, and the things that we find distressing and upsetting in the world, disappointing, and just say, well, we made this to be distressing, upsetting, and disappointing, and that's how we can, when we get our ego selves out of the way by just looking at them without condemnation, the Holy Spirit can just do, guide our thinking to see that, we're not upset for the reason we think. It's not out there. And the internal strife that we were afraid of looking at, because that's the only thing that's in the ego mind, that can be looked at calmly and see that there's nothing there either. It's a nada outside and a nada inside. Netty netty.
Netty, 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 netty. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but it's a Cartesian world,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's points referencing to other points.
Right, right.
And also I think therefore I am.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that Rene Descartes' famous phrase. I think they're very well. Yeah, we think, and
Uh,
therefore we think we are, or we think we exist. Using course's jargon, but the course says, you know, our being is perfect oneness, and therefore our real thought, and you probably could say singular thought, is one of perfect love. And again, we're going to try to use dualistic words because that's all we have to work with, but it's really a singular idea of perfect peace, perfect joyous loving kindness, innocence, all the words that we attempt to use to describe a quality of being and experience that is totally free from anything that is upsetting, distressing, disturbing, whatever, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and and again, back to Descartes and the before the horse, or
We just need to stop putting Descartes before the course, right?
that's right. Descartes before the course, because this is really how we know where we are in time and space, is because we
Mhm.
have all these reference points that we coordinate to think this is what I am. But there are no coordinates. There is no time.
Right,
There is
right.
no space.
Yep.
Those two things are actually one thing that has been split into two separate concepts so that we can figure out where we are on the map.
Yeah, yeah. And maps are enthralling. I don't know about anyone else listening, but well, I can look at a Google map or whether it's online or a paper map, and or an atlas. And one of the few books I brought with me was that big Rand McNally atlas that my sister gave me decades ago. Well, it's so easy to just, oh, wow, look at that place. Oh, look at that place. I didn't realize that was so close to that. And so, oh, that's, same latitude as that. What do you know? But I mean, it's it's we get so mesmerized by, well, memorized probably too, by things in space and time. And and when we have a lucid moment, we realize, well, we made all of this up just to keep us enthralled and hypnotized by an incredibly sophisticated dream. But it's a dream. It's a dream. Yep.
It's a dream, and I'm not in this point. I am not in this point. I am in all points. I'm in everything.
Yeah.
And I've only made myself into this one place. It is fascinating. I mean, honestly, look at how we figured out how to tell time, through coordinates, through it is and I had a dream where Einstein and Freud were telling me all about this, and I made a poem about it, about time and space are the same thing. They're just uh two definitions of the same thing. One is tells you how far, and one is telling you how long it takes to get there. That sounds like
Hmm.
an old song. Anyway, and this is what we're doing. Returning to the image of the water and glass, we understand that the love of God is the water, and the separated mind is the glass, which gives shape to the water, but it limits where the water can go because it can only be what our mind's fear can tolerate. That's all of God that we'll allow into ourselves, is what our mind's fear can tolerate. And this is why it's so important to look at our fear. Because once we start looking at our fears, and you can do that. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we're doing, a lot of different techniques in Gather, where we're looking at like Byron Katie's work, or Ho'oponopono, or Marshall Rosenberg's work, or all these different people who have, come up with ways of expressing and experiencing uh, out of not out of fear, but out of love. And so, that's the thing that makes the difference, is if we're limiting ourselves only to what our fear can tolerate, then we are very limited indeed. But if we allow ourselves to experience the love that's everywhere, then there's no need for a glass. The water turns to becomes ionized or becomes steam or whatever. Anyway, on to that. And let's see, we have about 4 more minutes. So I'll just read a little bit here,
Okay.
because I could go on and on thinking about this. To restate this, in the holy instant, our minds have chosen to become one with God's love, which is not a state our egos allow us to continue with, since it means the end of the ego itself. So that's it. Becoming the love is what is the threat to the ego. As the Course explains, this is from the Manual for Teachers, 26. Sometimes a teacher of God may have a brief experience of direct union with God. In this world, it is almost impossible that this endure. All worldly states must be illusory.
Mhm.
If God were reached directly in sustained awareness, the body would not long be maintained.
Wink.
And
But
that's
we go peace long before we go poof. I think
that's
that's
right.
something that Ken said, that Tim Wise likes to repeat frequently, which
Yeah.
is a really good and soothing, comforting reminder that we don't have to worry about, just sort of being teleported into another dimension suddenly when we practice enough forgiveness. It's like, well, at some point we're going to, if eventually at a pace that's comfortable to us individually, um, attain a state of awareness where we no longer are upset by whatever happens or doesn't happen in the world. Like Krishnamurti said, I don't mind what happens. And when we truly experience that on a consistent basis, which is probably a good ways off for most of us, um, I mean, completely consistently, then it won't matter if the body that we think we're inhabiting comes and goes, right? Then
Right.
it'll just be kind of long past that point. Then it's like, oh, well, okay, well, I guess maybe I'm ready to
Go poof.
go
but but
poof. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't really, and that's the thing that is so wonderful. I think about, examples like Ken
Hmm.
or Nisargadatta, and a lot of people love Ramana Maharshi, but
Hmm.
and I do too. But I love, Nisargadatta. I love Ken. I think that they all had gotten to a place where they were in such sustained awareness of God that the body was only it was just a vehicle.
Yeah.
And they recognize that, and were able to actually uh, operate in the world,
Hmm.
uh, like Jesus operated in the world using a body that was projected consciously by him.
Hmm.
He made it up. After he died, he reconstructed, what in the illusion. There is actually no physical world. That's the thing that
The
we're
central
so.
thought the course attempts to teach.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
is no world.
There is no world. These are just um, ideas that we believe in so strongly that we give them form. And
Hmm.
they're not. There's no form here at all. Information. We don't need any more information, right?
No.
And
And this particular form that we call Bruce is now going to disappear from Zoom and reappear magically next week. And I want to thank you, Lynn, as always, for um, holding this space for us to share on ACIM Gather and all the various streaming things that you do, which I will get updated soon. on. And anyway, have a wonderful week. Love to all, and look forward to the next picking up where we left off.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I love you, and I'm looking forward to more adventures of the traveling Bruce show because I love it though. I love it. I'm really uh I'm I'm just so grateful to be your friend all these years.
Likewise, likewise.
All right.
Have a great
All
week,
right.
everyone.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm going to stop this
Bye for
YouTube.
now.
And if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the like so that we know you were here. I'm starting to do that. It's a little ever